everyone, and welcome to the Blues Hub Weekly Show. I'm your host, Brooke Grimsley, alongside former Blues forward and Stanley Cup champion Jamal Mayers. The Blues Hub postgame show and Blues Weekly Show is presented by Hot Shots. St. Louis is home for all the games, all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshots.net. Thank you for everybody who's joining us right now. I'm sure that more people will be able to trickle in here soon. And make sure while you're here, you like and subscribe our YouTube channel and follow us on social media for all the updates, where we will be here daily covering everything, including Blues post game, Cardinals post game, whatever it is that is St. Louis sports. We will have you covered there. And tonight, of course, we have to recap everything with Blues Weekly with Jamal Mayers. Jamal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, Jamal, a lot to get into because, of course, we have to dive into the trade deadline, which passed this past week. But the Blues finished their West Coast swing with a 2-1 overtime loss against the Kings last night. You wanted to, but you're happy to come away with the point. Not trying to give them excuses or anything, but playing 3 games in 4 days is pretty exhausting.
It is, and especially the emotional roller coaster that they were certainly on with the trade deadline this past Friday. So weren't sure if they were going to make some moves, and they decided to stand pat. But you know what? I think it's a great indication that this organization and management, Army, believes in this group and thinks they can get over the hump and find a way to get that last wild card spot. Not going to be easy, but lots to catch up on, Brooke.
Yeah, and we'll go right into the trade deadline too, because obviously that's the big story of this week. A lot happening going into it too, including that Colton Pareko injury. I was wondering if that would affect things with the trade deadline happening on Friday, but it has come and gone, and the Blues didn't make any moves, not adding or subtracting any guys. What was your reaction, Jamal, to Doug Armstrong standing pat at the deadline?
It's interesting. There's quite a few layers to this, and I think on the surface it looked like um, this decision was made because the team was playing so well, and you don't want to move people. I think one thing that has to be really talked about is that they were talking about trading players that still had term on their contracts, and that to me changed the dynamic. So it's more of a hockey trade, if you will, when you're doing that. And when you look at it and you have Schenn, I believe, on the books for 3 more years, and there were certainly teams that were interested in him. You have to make the decision like, okay, if we move him, how are we going to replace him? Because picks aren't going to help us. He's already under contract for a few more years. And do we want to keep him? So there's a lot of things that went into, that factor, notwithstanding the fact that the team was playing well as of late. You don't really want to disrupt that. And even the other 2 guys that you're thinking about moving, Letty and Falk as well, they have term left on their deals. So it's not like they were unrestricted free agents and you were going to lose them for nothing. I think if that were the case, you would have seen Army make a move or 2, even though the team has positioned itself extremely well to possibly get one of those last wild card spots. But I think that the decision was made to stand pat, and I think not doing something was kind of a confidence boost to the players in the room, and kind of a like, hey guys, you guys have played well the last 3 weeks. Let's see what this group can do, and hopefully they can find a way to get in the playoffs.
And of course, you mentioned with Braden Schenn there, when the trade deadline passes, we start to get all those stories coming in of trades that could have happened, and that one with Braden Schenn being a big one, because it seems like him and the Toronto Maple Leafs were a big thing that maybe a lot of people were hoping to get done, including Toronto. But Schenn even talked about it this weekend, and he said that he wanted to stay with the Blues. Were you surprised by any of that?
I'm not surprised. I think that when someone signs a long-term contract, they envision themselves finishing out that contract, and that was his choice. And he had protections in the contract to allow him to not accept the trade. And I think you can't understate also the fact that he's the captain. And when you're the captain, you feel indebted to finish the journey, to finish what you've started with a group. And I think that knowing his older brother, having played with Luke when he was a rookie in Toronto, and knowing the family and knowing the kind of people and person that he is and teammate that he is, I think that it felt like he would be letting the group down if he accepted the trade. And I think he felt the burden, if you will, of having to see it through with this group to see if they can get to the playoffs.
I've also seen people bring up, what about adding guys, especially if you're trying to make this push for the playoffs? Could the Blues have done something there?
I think that's probably the only other thing that you probably would have liked to have seen. But again, it's sometimes when you don't make a move, it's more of a confidence boost to not to stand pat. And I've been in both situations where you're a team that has a chance to win and you don't add, kind of gives the group confidence that we didn't have to add. So I think there's some logic in that as well. It's like, no, we like the way our groups, we like the way our bottom six has been playing. We like the way guys have stepped up as of late. We like our team depth. And so not making a move could also be perceived as a positive if you're within the confines of that room and that and those walls. And so, yeah, as a fan, you want to see them add if they're going to give this group a chance. But I think it's mostly an indication that they were happy with this group.
So for all the people who are coming in right now, make sure you put any of your questions in the chat and we'll be sure to get to them. But as of right now, with that loss last night, they were able to get a point, as I mentioned, but the Blues are a point out of a playoff spot. And just looking at who is here currently right now, does this team, do you believe, have enough to get a wild card spot or even win a round in the playoffs?
Well, anything can happen if you get in. But what's really difficult for them is you've got to jump a few teams, and we should talk about this because Calgary is has played 63 games. They're at 70 points. Vancouver's played 62 games, one less game. They're at 69 points, tied with the Blues with 69 points, but the Blues have played 3 more games than Vancouver and 2 more games than Calgary. So it makes it even more difficult when you because if you look at it, oh, they only have to jump, they only have to they're only 1 point back, but you have to jump two teams. And so it makes it really hard. Can they do it? Absolutely. They're gonna have to go on a run. They're gonna have to win a certain amount of games every 3 every of 3 games segments. They're gonna have to win 2 of those every 3 game segment. And that should be their mindset. Not easy to do, but a really good weekend that they had after an emotional week leading up to the trade deadline to come away with 5 of 6 points is a really good step in the right direction.
Was there a team that impressed you with their moves during the trade deadline?
Yeah, several teams. Obviously, Florida picking up Marchand was really sticks out, but 2 teams in the West for me that I appear to be the winners. If you just look on the surface, and the first one is Dallas picking up Rantanen, and it's a massive pickup for them. It really makes things interesting in the West to see what at the top of the table what that means for that group. But also, I really look at Colorado, what they did. They're trying to keep pace with teams in the West. You look at the Jets really stood pat. You look at what they're what Edmonton what they did. Vegas was kind of quiet for once. They've always gone and done something, but Colorado went out and they really made themselves stronger down the middle. Now they've got McKinnon in the one hole. They've got Brock Nelson from the Islanders as a number 2 center, and they went out and got Charlie Coyle from Boston as the 3rd line center. So you look at what they were doing and what they've done, and then they go out and absolutely put a beating on the Toronto Maple Leafs in comeback fashion. That I think that those 2 teams really made themselves better. We'll see if the chemistry works out and they can end up doing damage in the playoffs. But I think the winners of trade deadline for me are Dallas and Colorado.
Obviously, another big story for the Blues this week when you're kind of talking about that emotional roller coaster is also losing Colton Pareko. He will undergo a
Yes.
scope on his left knee, and he's likely out for the rest of the regular season. I mean, obviously, this is a huge blow to the Blues because we've seen how beneficial a healthy Colton Pareko is to this group.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because he was on pace for possibly getting to 20 goals and um, really having a fantastic season offensively and had played so well in the 4 Nations, and that confidence that he gained from that tournament had bled into his play of late with the Blues, and um, it's a massive loss. It really is, but hopefully they can withstand it. Hopefully other guys can step up. Hopefully Falk, who's been playing well as of late, can step up. Hopefully Nick Leddy can step up as well. But it's not going to be easy. He plays in every situation. Even strength, plays against other teams' top lines. He plays penalty kill. He's on the power play. He eats up a lot of minutes. So hard to play against. Defends extremely well. Not to mention the offensive explosion that he's brought this year is you're really going to miss him, but you hope that they can find a way to get it done without.
I know it's like we were talking about last week. A lot of fans just want to be Pronger. They kind of they want that like kind of really just strong physical presence. But then when you see when he's removed from the game and removed from this team, how much he actually does for this group, like you were just talking about there. And it's a lot.
Yeah, it to me that's sometimes unfortunate. The game's changed over the years, and I think that it's really unfair to Colton to always put the little question mark. Well, what if he was a little meaner? And well, you know what? He's a nice guy. Let's get that out there. But he plays hard. He's hard in the puck areas. He's not gonna. Very seldom will he drop his gloves. The game doesn't require that anymore. Toughness for me is how hard is he around the puck in the corners and in front of the net. That's
Yeah.
what. That's where you need to be tough. That's the toughness that matters. And he has shown time and time again that he's hard to play against. Time and time again that he has an offensive flair to his game. And instead of looking at the holes in his game, it's about time we start celebrating how great he is and what he does, and how the fact that he is an absolute steal for his salary based on what he brings to the table.
And just looking at the postseason too, which hopefully that's what we're hoping, right? Is that the Blues make that playoff push. Do you think that maybe, of course, this is all going to be determined about what his recovery would look like with this knee injury, but would he be possibly ready for the playoffs if that is able to work out in that way?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I mean, obviously, when you go and you have a scope, they hope for the best and they hope they can clean it up and do whatever they can do. There is also the chance that they go in there and they see that that things change and that dynamic changes. I think we'll know more once that scope is done and he starts some of his recovery. But I think the plan from the outset has been like, we're going to get him back for the playoffs. And now it's the job of the guys that are healthy to find a way to get them in there.
And you mentioned players who need to step up, Nick Leddy being one of them, and he had a really good game, I believe, last night. I think that even in the loss, there was some positives to take away, especially the shot blocking. That was something that Jim Montgomery talked about after the game too, and the self-sacrificing that you see when guys do that. I mean, Montgomery even mentioned in the game the block shots and that screen by Bolduc, which led to that Nick Leddy goal. What did you see in that with the guys sacrificing themselves in that way?
But to me, when I see that, it tells me that they care about each other. And when you have that care factor, it changes what's possible for a group. It allows you to withstand an injury like Pareko. It allows you to allow younger guys to step in and and be successful and have success, and they have a more of a nurturing environment that's allows them the space to grow and be successful. And I think that if you look at the last three games, they allowed 2 goals, they allowed 3 goals, and then they allowed 2 goals. Like they're a team that's realizing down the stretch, we're gonna have to defend first, play the right way, and be patient in our structure and doing the right things. And part of that sacrifice that they're talking about, Brooke, does mean you have to block shots. And I think that they are willing to do what it takes to win games. And um, I think a really successful weekend this past weekend, finding a way to get 5 of 6 points.
And also looking back at the games this past week, you had the Kings, the Ducks, and then the Kings again. Who was your player of the week?
For me, it was Binner. I was looking at the stats and the stat line, and no one really jumped out. But Binner won both the games that he ended up playing in, and not an easy thing to do on the road, and all the speculation and things around him. He's been an amazing calming influence on this group all season long. And for me, I got to go with Binner.
And then who's the guy that needs to step up? I know you mentioned Falk and Letty, of course, but is there anybody else that you think needs to step up during this time too?
You know what? It's just all the big boys. If the big boys step up, Buchnevich needs to step up. Thomas needs to step up. Kyrou, if and Schenner. If those guys are driving, good things are going to happen, and the young guys will certainly follow.
With the big boys, you definitely mean the guys with the big contracts too,
Yeah,
because that's what
yeah,
everybody's looking at. You're getting paid all that money. Everybody's looking at you to help push them through, right?
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. They got to show up and produce.
And also looking at what's next for the Blues this week, we keep mentioning watching the wild card spot and the Blues trying to vie for that. The Blues will face the Penguins on Thursday, the Wild on Saturday, and the Ducks on Sunday. What do you need to see from those games?
Again, for me, I look at them as 2 game segments. It's you got to win the games you're supposed to win. You got to win, and you got to take 2 out of 3 the rest of the way, 3 out of 4 the rest of the way, and just keep stacking wins and don't look further ahead than the week that's in front of you, and take care of your own business.
Awesome. Okay, now it's time to bring in our Blues writer and teammate here at Sports Hub STL. That is Mike Meyer for our prospect report. Mike, how are you doing? Oh, we got to unmute you for a second.
There we go.
There we go. All right,
doing well,
now
guys.
how are you doing?
Doing well. Technical difficulties aside.
There we go. Well, it was solved very quickly. So, Mike, what are you seeing right now from the Springfield Thunderbirds who are rolling in the AHL?
Yeah, 7-2-0-1 in their last 10, including a very impressive 4-1 start for March. This is a team who is really looking just to solidify themselves here in the playoff position, and right now they're doing so backed by their goaltenders, Colton Ellis and Vadim Zarenko. These guys are 1 point ahead of Lehigh Valley with 2 games here in hand, 66 points here on the season. Again, most of their success here right now, it's coming here from these goaltenders. This month, Colton Ellis has stopped 95 of 97 shots against, while Zarenko has stopped 86 of 94. So just doing some really quick math here. Both of these guys have stopped a combined 181 of 191 shots against, for a whopping 948 save percentage. They're getting some timely offense here, but it's no secret here. These are the guys who are going to help lead them here into a hopeful long postseason stretch.
And just sticking with Colton Ellis real quick, because it has been such a busy week for the Blues, that we should mention that he signed a 2-year extension with the Blues. And Jamal, you can weigh in on this too if you've noticed anything with Colton, but that seems like a great deal to have him locked up with that 2-year extension.
Absolutely, and I think sometimes it's exactly what young players need. Is they need that reassurance, confidence-wise, that the organization believes in me and they want me around, and that can sometimes help catapult a young player into a different stratosphere. That confidence, like tell you what, that contract really puts a lot of players at ease and allows them to play with a lot more confidence and excitement.
And also, we have to do our Jimmy Snuggerud watch. I was joking about it last week, but at this point, I feel like everybody wants a Jimmy Snuggerud watch. And Minnesota losing to Notre Dame at 4-1 in that Big Ten tourney quarterfinal series, 2-1. So what's next for Jimmy and his team, Mike?
Unfortunately, right now they have to play the waiting game. This was a huge quarterfinals loss here for them. I think one that was expected, that they're going to go on to hopefully win the Big Ten championship. They're going to have to just play the waiting game. They've got about 2 weeks to wait until their NCAA tournament assignment. Until then, we're just going to be stuck here in limbo, unfortunately.
I know it's always tough to see. And, Minnesota is such a good team and Jimmy is just exciting. I know a lot of Blues fans are excited to see him here soon. Who's another Blues prospect on your radar right now, or maybe somebody who's under the radar?
I feel to go north of the border here with Will McIsaac, Spokane Chiefs defenseman. He was drafted 145th overall here in this last draft here in 2024. He's one of their alternate captains right now, playing in his 3rd season here in the WHL. This is a guy to really be able to keep an eye on. 6'3", 201-pound defensive defenseman. He's got 2 goals, 6 points here in his last 5 games, and offense really isn't ever like his big calling card. He's got 33 points in 61 games, but an incredible plus 43 rating here on the season. This is a guy who is doing a great job using his body very, very well. Very good timely poke checks, putting himself into a good position, but just flatten rushers and just take away scoring chances. He's a defenseman I really think that fans should be able to keep an eye here on. Again, not one that's going to be able to stand out here on the score sheet, but one that's going to make some really good timely plays, be able to help just prevent any bit of opposition here coming their way.
We just had Andrew chime in saying, would be awesome to see Jimmy Snuggerud at the Frozen Four in St. Louis.
That's the dream. Absolutely the dream. And then the dream after that is for him to be able to sign with St. Louis, and just for him just to be able to stay right there and just keep plugging along here with the Blues.
And Mike, I saw that you were on the post-game show last night. Just your reaction to how the Blues are doing right now as they're trying to compete for a wild card spot.
I think they're doing a great job. They've really bought into Jim Montgomery here right now. Almost had Snugger. We got two Jims here on the line here right now. I think they're really buying in here to what they're saying. You don't want to say, it's a very unfortunate untimely situation here with Colton Pareko. But they've got the next man up mentality, and everybody is just banding together here around one another and saying, okay, you've got this assignment, I've got that assignment, and they're just really working well together. It's still going to be an uphill battle just with the number of games still left to be played and the fact that they've played a few more games than everybody else. So there's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching, but I'm loving this full effort from this team putting forth, a full 60 minutes here most nights, and be able to just go forth here with every single game.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I do want to get one comment in here as we are closing out this show. Ghostface Gaming, excuse me, it's late at night and I'm still just trying to stay awake. But he said, sucks the Blues didn't keep any of their good goal scorers after winning in the Cup. They got cheap. If we had Perron or Tarasenko, we'd be better scoring more goals. Well, you guys, of course, could weigh in on this. I loved watching David Perron during the playoffs when he was here with the Blues. It was like playoff Perron was like a completely different person. But the way that those contracts were just laid out didn't seem like there was a way that the Blues could have kept him, maybe.
Yeah, and I think that they're kind of two players that are getting a little bit long in the tooth, if you want to be honest. And
yeah,
I like Perry as a player, but to fit into that top six role just didn't make sense, and it didn't make sense to keep him in a bottom six role. And very similarly, Tarasenko, and you've seen him on 3 or 4 different teams now. He was in Ottawa, now Detroit, and moving around quite a bit. It's going to be difficult for those guys to find where they fit in, because to have success, they got to be in the top 6 and they got to be on a second unit power play. And in order to do that, a lot of times you're taking the spot from a younger player. So sometimes when those guys move on, it's a good sign for your organization that you have younger players that are able to assume those positions and those roles at a much, much cheaper salary as well.
And then from Andrew, how many points do you think it will take for the second wildcard team to make the postseason?
I'll go with 96. I haven't really looked at it, but it's always hovering around 96, 97. That's what I'll go with.
And then John, with a very ominous message here, with is there any chance? I'm going to guess that means any chance for the Blues to make the playoffs. I think there's always a chance, like you were saying, like how you were laying it out.
Absolutely, there's a chance. Yes, there's a chance. Go on a run. Don't go too far ahead. Put Binner in there as many times as you can. Whereas if he can go, I'd play him 4 to 5. Just keep playing him 4 to 5 the rest of the year.
And then Ghostface Gaming again says, we need more scoring. We're lacking that star goal scorer bad. And Jamal, you touched on this too a little bit earlier when we were discussing guys who need to step up. It's those big guys, the big money guys.
Yeah, it always is. And I think that it becomes harder to score now that you're into these like last 20 games of the season. It's not easy. So it's about simplifying. It's about getting your nose dirty, getting in front of the net. It's about those big boys who get paid the big bucks, stepping up and scoring goals, because that's what you need to do to win. And then having the faith and trust in Monty's system to check and play the game the right way, understanding time, scoring situation, and finding a way, however it is, to get the wins. But you're right. You got to score goals to win in this league.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us, Jamal and Mike. It was wonderful catching up with you, and we'll have more next week with our Blues Weekly show. But before we head out, I want to let you guys know about this event that we have going on this week, which will be really cool that Jamal will be a part of. We have our Blues fans. You can join our Sports Hub STL Hot Shot Sports Bar and Grill and DraftKings for our first Blues Hub watch party. While you're watching Thursday night's Blues game on television, log on to sportshubstl.com, where you'll find Andy Strickland, Cam Jansen, and Jamal Mayers and other special guests as they watch the game along with you and take your questions and comments as the Blues play at Pittsburgh. It all happens this Thursday night, starting just before puck drop at 6 at Blues Hub second screen experience, where you can hang out virtually with Strickland, Jansen, and Mayers and other special guests. It's all brought to you by Hot Shot Sports Bar and Grill and by DraftKings. That'll be an awesome event, Jamal.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I can't wait to give Cam some trouble and reminisce when we were teammates and tell some funny stories and hear what he has to say about the Blues. He's been around the team quite a bit this year, so we should have some fun.
Yeah, that's a great group of guys, and looking forward to that on Thursday. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Jamal and Mike, again, and thank you all for joining us for Blues Hub Weekly. We'll see you guys next week.